مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے، دکھا دے وہ انوار روزائے اطہر، کہوں حال دل ان کی چوکھٹ پہ جا کر، تمنائے دل کی میرے سب مٹا دے، تمنائے دل کی میرے سب مٹا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے، وہ شاہ دو عالم ہے میں جانتا ہوں، سیاکار ہوں یہ بھی میں مانتا ہوں، سیاکاریوں کی نہ مجھ کو سزا دے، سیاکاریوں کی نہ مجھ کو سزا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے، یہ نسبت میرے دل کو شرمندگی ہے، خبر ہے مجھے جو میری بندگی ہے، اسے ان کے عرفاں کا زینہ بنا دے، اسے ان کے عرفاں کا زینہ بنا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے، مدینے کے رستے کا راہی بنا دے، میری ذات میں انقلاب آئے ایسا، سوا ان کے کچھ میرے دل کو نہ بھائے، تمنا کے انوار سے جگمگا دے، تمنا کے انوار سے جگمگا دے، درے پاک مولا مجھے بھی دکھا دے۔
الحمدللہ رب العالمین والصلاة والسلام علی رسول اللہ، اما بعد، فاعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، قال رب اشرح لی صدری ویسر لی امری واحلل عقدۃ من لسانی یفقہوا قولی، فاذکرونی اذکرکم واشکروا لی ولا تکفرون، صدق اللہ العظیم۔ We begin with the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Lord, the Creator, the Provider, the Sustainer, the King of all kings. We then send salutations upon the greatest creation of all, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and we also send salutations upon the Ahlul Bayt, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, the Taba Tabi'in, the Awliya, the pious and the righteous. May Allah be pleased with them all. Now, just as an intro, we are all here because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to be here. So it's not by chance or luck that we were here tonight. You did your bit by striving to come here. Often when there is a majalis or any kind of religious kind of function, we have the inner voice, the nafs, saying, maybe don't go, you're tired tonight, you've got work tomorrow, you've got this, you've got that, maybe I'll go next week. I came last week, so I can miss last week. I came last week, so maybe it's okay to miss this week. But when you go against that inner voice or the inner thoughts, then you are really striving. So you've arguably done one of the hardest parties, which is to come here tonight. But now that you're here, you should obviously try to take advantage, and even however small, you may gain one thing which may bring, I'm not saying it's going to bring a wholesale change in you whatsoever, very rarely that will happen, and as people say, Rome wasn't built overnight. But as he said, even if we take one small thing and try to change ourselves and build upon that every week, every second week, every month, then over time we should see a change in ourselves. And so really just correct your intention that you're here for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and always remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. He can see us and he can hear us. And I always use the example of a sale. You wouldn't go to a sale, queue hours before, once you open the doors in, then just walk into the store and probably not buy anything or even not even look at any of the goods. So just really focus on that. You're all probably been aware in the last few weeks, or especially in Ramadan, that we had this issue of Palestine and the issues surrounding Masjid al-Aqsa and the oppression going on in Gaza. Now, I'm probably the oldest one here, and some of the younger members will not know necessarily that this kind of issue seems to flare up every 6 to 7 years. And the reality is that what seems to happen every 6 to 7 years is things kick off. Israel is allowed to batter the Gaza, destroy their buildings, destroy their infrastructure. America, the West, stay quiet for 2 to 3, 4 weeks, let them do the damage. Then there's talk of a ceasefire, and the ceasefire happens, and lo and behold, everything calms down. You then get America, the United Nations, Britain's all donating billions of pounds in aid now to Gaza to rebuild it again, knowing full well that in another 6, 7 years, the same thing's going to happen. Now, obviously, my discourse is not political in any shape or form, but again, just by way of some background knowledge, the reason why they do that is that if you're still building infrastructure, your houses, your roads, you're less likely to fight your enemy because you're more bothered about building a roof over your head, getting a job, getting back on your feet. And this is why it keeps on happening every 6 to 7 years. But what I noticed different this time was the battle on social media between what's the propaganda of Israel and the rise of what is called the electronic intifada. So the intifada is just a word used normally to when things kick off in Gaza and the Palestinians uprise. But this time it was, although yes, there was some uprising going on there, it was very much what we call an electronic intifada. And we were all seeing posts or being asked to share posts, change our statuses on our various social media profiles, change our profile picture to the Palestinian flag, etc., etc. And again, we would have all seen adverts for marches. Even there was a march in Berlin, which I think probably is the first time I've noticed a march, and there was convoys and various fundraising type of events. I'll ask a question. Do we know why we were doing this, or why we were being asked to do this? Join convoys, join marches, share posts, change statuses? Brother Shiz?
Maybe to raise awareness.
Yes, that's one aspect, but raise awareness to whom? To us?
To the powers that be, such as the governing bodies. So each of the main political parties within the country, so then they can take action.
Correct, and obviously that's a legitimate aim, as you said, and just like when people go on marches, it is, I'd have to say, probably in the vain hope that the powers that be are going to change, as you said. Another one of the reasons why we may be doing is, did we feel the pain of our fellow Muslim brothers and sisters in Palestine? And that follows up on the question, well, how can we feel their pain when they are thousands of miles away? I can say with 100% certainty that none of us have had our houses bombed, or that we go through checkpoints as such, or that, the only time probably when our water is limited is when we visit Pakistan. Other than that, we're all born here and we've not had these kind of problems. And the reality is, yes, we're there to raise awareness, but also to feel that pain, feel that suffering, because we know all about the hadith that if one part of any part of the body suffers pain, the rest of the body should suffer the pain, and that's obviously often applied to the Muslim Ummah. And that is why we should and we do feel the pain of, be it Muslims in Palestine, Kashmir, Yemen, Rohingya, Uyghur in China, and it's so that we can relate to their pain. But Another thing the Mashaykh also say and the ulama say is that maybe this is happening because of our sins, that we are sinful in this country and oppression is being given to other parts of the Muslim Ummah. And it follows on then what is really the purposes of, be it even this Gaza event or Palestine issues, Masjid al-Aqsa, wherever there is a war, any kind of event. Has anything changed in us? We may have changed our statuses, our Snapchat profile pictures, but are we still using that same social media platform to commit sin? Are we looking at Gad Merrims, and I say this applies to both males and females, are we using these social media platforms to backbite against other people, to spread rumours, tales, to even arrange acts of zina? Because what good is having that profile picture saying you feel the pain and suffering in Palestine when really the same social media platform you're committing sins against the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, against what our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us as well. And I'll give my own example. I mean, I have seen these issues in Palestine. I think the last one was in 2014. There was an issue in 2005. And I vividly remember an issue in 2000 when I was at university, when I think it was a Jenin refugee camp and Israel had surrounded it and had blockaded it, and there was 50,000 people there, and there was talk of many people dying because they wouldn't let any food in, etc., etc., and no media was allowed in. And I have to ask the question to myself back then, now, did them atrocities in them days bring me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the reality is, we all go through these events, be it personal events in our life and worldly events, but do they actually change us? Or is it the same old, same old? I mean, really, we have to ask. I mean, Palestine situation has been going on since 1948, effectively. We're talking 60, 70 years. Has the Ummah become more united and more pious since then? I mean, looking outwardly, we'd probably have to say, no, it's gone the other way. Because look at all the Muslim countries, the power that we have, the oil. If they're really all united, they could bring America, Israel to its knees and solve the situation. But realistically, there's probably more division in Muslim countries, and I say apply that to our own selves, between us, members of our household, our families, relatives, friends. There's more division, and less unity since then. So realistically, we have to think we have these issues every 6-7 years. We are going to go to marches, we're going to raise awareness, we want the governments to act and solve this situation. But the reality is, we forget probably the main lesson, which is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These events are happening so that we turn back to Allah. And that's on a personal level to really begin with. I mean, I remember an Imam telling me in 2014 that don't tell me you care about Palestine when you can't even get up for Fajr Salah yourself or join the Jamaat at the Masjid. How can you? And at the time, through my own ignorance, I couldn't really understand why he was saying that. What has me praying Fajr, got to do with the hurt sympathy I had for the Palestinian people? But now understand, realistically, if I'm not getting up for Fajr Salah, am I not doing zulm, harm to myself? Of course you are. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to read 5 times a day Salah, and we may sleep through some deliberately because of laziness, tiredness, whatever that may be. Whatever excuse we have, it is not valid, end of. So we can tell ourselves, I've got work, I've got this, I've got that, but there's no excuse for it. And realistically, we are doing zulm and harm to ourselves really on a daily basis. But, we think, oh, let's forget that. Let's worry about people 6,000 miles away. Of course we should do. I'm not saying we shouldn't. But use that, what's happening to them, on yourself first. We do shukr that we don't have bombs raining upon us. We are in the safety of our houses, in the comforts of our bed. Yet we can't get up for Fajr. But we are trying to say we care about the Palestinians. We sympathize with them, etc., etc. Imagine if we all went and lived there for 1 year. Would we be able to do it? To deal with the power cuts, the water, the blockades, etc. We really should be taking a number of lessons from these kind of events. And we've obviously had COVID, and it's still continuing. All of us will have had death in the family. We have to even think of loss of health, wealth, any kind of personal tragedy in our lives. It's a reminder from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, come back to me. Now, our blessed teacher talked about, obviously, this situation in Palestine and Masjid al-Aqsa, and they obviously said there are short-term actions we can take, which is, as he said, we raise awareness, we donate in charity to help them people, and obviously it's encouraged that we should visit Masjid al-Aqsa, because the more we visit and the greater the numbers are, the more the Israelis think that we're not going to go away, because I've not been myself yet, but I know brothers who have been, and I'm told that you are stopped at the airport or even the crossing from Jordan for several hours, and all that is to discourage you and tell people, say, don't bother going there, because they're going to keep holding for 5, 6, 7 hours. They separate the males often from the families, and they'll ask you, stupid questions like, why are you here? What do you think about Al-Qaeda, etc., etc.? And that's all to discourage us from visiting it, because they know the less people visit it, the less important it will come, and the more effectively they'll be able to take it over. Now, our blessed teacher also talked about the long-term actions, which is really the basis of my beyond here, which is that we become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ourselves, because not only will that make us stronger individually, when we all become stronger individually, the Ummah collectively becomes stronger. The more chance we'll actually have of stopping oppression and the zulm being done, be it in Palestine, Kashmir, Yemen, etc. Now, I don't need to necessarily go in detail today through how we get closer, and we obviously have the outer aspects like praying 5 times a day, salah, praying in Jamaat at Masjid, dressing the Sunnah way, eating halal food, having halal earnings, paying zakat, keeping fast. Those are what I call outer aspects. And we will all know, obviously, that especially through the course of self-purification and tazkiyah, how important the inner is. And as we all know, the inner is obviously seen as a forgotten aspect, as you said, because we think we're praying 5 times a day, we may have a beard, we may have a imama, we're dressing the sunnah way, aren't we all, have reached that station of piety, etc. And it's often when we start the course of tazkiyah that the reality is shown that, we are sinning every single day with our tongue, our other organs, our minds are corrupted, we are spreading tales about other people, as soon as we hear something or we see something, our mind immediately turns to the negative thought about somebody. We have hasad inside us, etc., etc. And it's only through this inner journey of the tazkiyah course does it all be laid bare. And often I talk about myself first, that we think, I might have progressed by praying 5 times a day. But it's only when you start the tazkiyah you realize how far you are away from really pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are very, very far from it, as he said, and it's really the key focus for us, as he said, because you purify yourself now, it'll be saved you'll be saved from the purification in the grave. And that's really the reality we have to accept. It's either do it now or do it later. It's your choice. And I mean, I'm moving on from that point. I give again an example. At that time in 2000 when I was at university, I used to play football with the Islamic Society, and they had I think it was like a mini World Cup, and there were other kind of nations, and there was a Jewish society, and lo and behold, we got drawn to play against a Jewish society. So, we were thinking, right, we're ready for the kickoff. As soon as, one tackle goes in, we're going to be going fists in. Shall we all wear Palestinian T-shirts underneath so if we can score a goal, etc., etc. We had all these thoughts. We're going to sort them out. This is the opportunity we've been looking for. And though we did beat him, I have to say myself, they were the nicest people we ever played with. Their akhlaq, their mannerisms were so good. I was shocked myself that at the end we were talking like friends, because again, we have these preconceived conceptions about Jews and Jews this and Jews that, and we really can't taint every single Jew with the same brush. And neither should we, as he said. And some of us may come across Jewish people in work environments, and I was really struck by their akhlaq. Every single one of them was nice, approachable, and the reality is we were chomping for a kickoff before. We were looking for that spark to just go in there, thinking that is the thing we should do as a Muslim, and that is far from the teachings, the Sunnah, everything. It goes against our religion. Doing that kind of action is not something which makes us proud as Muslims. It would have really gone the other way. And it taught me a lesson, as he said, that we can have issues with people, but that doesn't stop us from being nice, being civil with them in that regard. Now, we all want to help Palestine, Yemen, Rohingya, the Muslims in Uyghur, but what is more powerful than sharing posts, attending marches, boycotting Coca-Cola, Starbucks? I think we've all seen posts that we should be boycotting this brand, that brand, etc. Can anyone tell me what is more powerful than that, with a shahid? Yes. Hamza? What is more powerful than sharing posts, attending marches, boycotting brands because they're linked to Israel? MashaAllah, I'm not sure whether you've looked at my behind before I came here, but that is exactly right. Dua is the weapon of the believer. And again, I think it wasn't stressed enough again for Palestine that, yes, share posts, do this, do that, but how many of us actually remembered Palestine in our duas? How many times did we actually make dua for them? What did we say in our dua about them? Was it just, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please help the people in Palestine, and then we just moved on? Did we really plead with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Did we get up at the Hajj? Did we read on the dua between the time of Asr and Maghrib on Fridays? We have to ask these questions of ourselves, that, yes, share posts, do this, do that. But really, the biggest weapon we have at our disposal, we probably underutilized it. And realistically, again, that's where our inner weaknesses lie, because we probably, again, underplay the power of dua, because we think maybe we do it too often. We do it 5 times a day. We stick our hands up and we make dua. And realistically, we often think maybe it's not accepted. It's, we're going through the motions. It's just a physical, repetitive, parrot-like act. And, there's many reasons why we have that mindset. And primarily is because when we make dua, our mindset, our intention is elsewhere as usual. We're going through the motions. And, the sincerity is missing from the dua. Don't share any posts. Don't go to any marches. But if you get up, you make dua for them, that is more powerful than all the other acts of marches, boycotting brands. Trust me. Don't let anyone tell you opposite. And it's not that you have to publicize a dua, or look at me, I'm making a dua for Palestine. As he said, it's again a personal, individual act between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just in conclusion, as you said, we have to think why this situation came about. And the reality is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed, He can change the situation of Palestine in a second. And again, it's an aspect I think people seem to forget, that whatever happens in this dunya is with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, good or bad. If Muslims are being oppressed in Palestine, it is with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not outside of the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Israelis don't have power which is superior to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that applies to every situation in Yemen, Rohingya, Uyghur, China, Kashmir, everywhere. It's not outside the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So once we know that, we have to ask the question ourselves. And it's a question I've seen non-believers or atheists ask. Well, if there was a God who is allegedly merciful, then why is this oppression? Why is these people suffering in this world? It's a question they often ask, thinking that, well, effectively we should have paradise here now on earth. There should be no oppression, no hunger, no poverty. People shouldn't be ill. People, should be dying. But they obviously seem to confuse that with paradise and the afterlife, because we all know that this life is a test. So the Palestine situation was a test. And as he said, there's tests on a lower level. Are we going to do some awareness? Because again, another situation I often see with us Muslims, we may sit at home and complain about situations and this, that, the other, but not even do anything, as he said. Not even make any dua, not even share a post, not even try to attend a march, and just sit and, effectively mourn about the situation with ourselves. But again, we have to change ourselves first. The weakness lies within ourselves. Why are they getting oppressed? Is because the Ummah is weak. And why is the Ummah weak? Because us as individuals are weak. It's easy for us to say, well, Saudi should be doing this, Turkey should be doing this, Pakistan should be doing this, they should launch, jihad on Israel, etc., etc. But the reality is we are weak within ourselves individually. We are weak within our own households. We are weak in our local community. And you can see then the net effect is the Ummah, as he said, is weak. Israel was doing it, and how many Muslim countries actually spoke up about it, and how much of the Arab countries actually spoke up about it. I don't think I heard a thing from the Saudis. Arguably they are one of the wealthiest Muslim countries, as he said, and in theory should have the most power, but we didn't hear anything about it. And so remember, it's happening with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We make dua that Allah relieve them from this oppression, but equally we make a change within ourselves. So if we were not praying Fajr or any other salah, we should say, okay, because of this situation in Gaza, I'm now going to turn to my Lord and become closer to him. We can think we're safe in this country, there won't be a bomb landing in our house, but as the people of Syria 15 years ago, they were living in relative peace, security and comfort, and now look at them. So don't think, often we think in this country we are going to be safe from all these kind of situations, but we don't know what tomorrow holds. And so think about the lesson and then act upon it. Don't be like when we are in Ramadan, we go from one Ramadan to the next Ramadan and we haven't changed ourselves. We think at the start of Ramadan or before Ramadan, we are going to do X, Y, Z. This is going to be to the Ramadan which changes me. And we fall down one, maybe even on Eid day, even on the so-called Chandrat, you'll see the fitna which spreads straight away. And maybe after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, it's like Ramadan never happened. And yet, that same situation will occur again the next year and the following year. And I use the same analogy with these kind of Palestinian issues or whatever it may be. There's a cycle of these events, and yet it keeps happening, and our states haven't changed. And so realistically, bring the change within yourself, however small it is. Make one small change. be that I will get up for Fajr, I will no longer miss Fajr, no matter what it is, whether I've got work, whether I finish at 12 o'clock at night. It's particularly maybe difficult to read Fajr now because Isha's late, and then the gap between between Isha and Fajr is short, as you said, and then if you have to get up, then go back to sleep, we think our sleep is being disrupted, we're feeling more tired. But therein lies a reward. And so strive, change, and keep making dua, because that it is the weapon of the believer. And when Allah wills, Palestine will be back in the hands of Muslims. We don't need to worry about that. We know what are the references to the end of times, that all that area will be back in the hands of Muslims. So we know it's already been told that it is going to come at that time back in the hands of Muslims. We needn't worry about it. And therefore do what we can within ourselves. Of course, continue the fight for the Palestinian people and change within ourselves. If I've said anything wrong or not in accordance with Islam, I seek forgiveness from my errors, and all goodness comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I believe we'll now move on to the zikr majalis. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم محمد سيد القونين والثقلين والفريقين جل الله حسبي ربي جل الله حسبي ربي جل الله حسبي ربي جل الله ما في قلبي غير 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 الله نور محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا 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 الله 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 Subhanallah, 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 Alhamdulillah, 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 Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, huwa lillahil hamdulillah, الذي لا يضره ما فيه شيء ولا يعلم تسمعون لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله إلا بالله سبوح قدوس ربنا ورب الملائكة والروح سبوح قدوس ربنا ورب الملائكة والروح رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين 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 يا ذو الجلال والإكرام يا ذو الجلال والإكرام يا ذو الجلال والإكرام يا ذو الجلال والإكرام يا حي يا قيوم يا حي يا قيوم يا حي يا قيوم يا حي يا قيوم يا قهار يا قهار يا قهار يا قهار هي هي Allah أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم صلى الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم نسألك خير هذه الليلة وفتحها ونورها وبركتها ومضاها. اللهم نسألك خير هذه الليلة. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen, Ya Malik Yawmiddin. Ya Allah, today, Ya Allah, honor all the people in attendance of this gathering and any gathering of that matter. Ya Allah, in this time of difficulty for the Ummah, for mankind, for the people on earth, Ya Allah, make matters easy for everybody. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, reunite all the Ummah under the flag and banner of the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, we are not interested in division, in causing chaos in the Ummah. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, all we want is to be close to you, is to be loved by you, is to be your ashik, to be the lover of your beloved messenger, Sayyidul Wujud, Sayyidul Anbiya, Imam al-Anbiya, Sayyidul Mursaleen, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, this is all we ask of you. Ya Allah, you have given us a complete path to you, a complete guideline, an open book exam. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Allow us to follow this with a whole heart, with an open heart. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Sometimes we have difficulties with one another, we have problems with one another. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. But do not allow us to be worried by this small speck of dust in comparison to the greater cause which is your pleasure. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Today in the bayan it was mentioned about Palestine and how the Ummah will react. Ya Allah, allow us to act upon this bayan. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Allow us to honor this bayan. Allow us to honor the word. Ya Allah, bestow knowledge and nobility and wisdom into our beloved brother Majed, who has delivered this beautiful seminar and discourse today. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, allow everyone to benefit. Everyone who sees this, Ya Allah, allow them to benefit. Ya Allah, fill this house, fill every house with the light of your love, the light of the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the light of our mashayikh. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. We grant this as a gift upon all the people who have suffered from Adam alayhi salam up till now, all the people who have passed away. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, through your wasila of your beloved messenger Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, the Taba Tabi'in, the pious and righteous. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, grant a long life to our teacher Sayyidina Sheikh Ahmad Dabbagh, the Mat Barakatuhu Muttazilul Aziz. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. All the children, all the ustaz, Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Allow us to follow them, honor them. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Allow us to give them whatever we can within our capacity, Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen, to support the message, Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen, rather than personal gain and agenda, but to support the message of love and light and of tazkiyah to the whole world, Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Ya Allah, if it's in our capacity to give money, Ya Allah, allow us to give money. If it's in our ability to give time, Ya Allah, allow us to give our time and sacrifice it and give qurbani on this time. Ya Allah, and whatever we can give, Ya Allah, allow us to give it wholeheartedly, without worrying, without losing sleep, without any difficulty. Ya Allah, Ya Murahimeen. Wa sallallahu ala habibihi Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ameen bi rahmatika ya Rahim.